All right, let's call this meeting to order. Please help me first by silencing your cell phones or turning them off. We will start our meeting as we do with a moment of silence. All right, thank you so much. And now if you would please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for that. Next up, we have Ethan with announcements.
Good evening, everybody. Just a few announcements for you this evening. Right off the top, I just wanted to remind everybody that town offices are closed Wednesday, June 19th and Thursday, July 4th. We have some updates coming to the town board meeting formats. Our regular meeting, the next one will be held on July 16th, and starting with that meeting, meetings will be held on the first and third Tuesdays of every month going forward. And just as a reminder, the first meeting in July is canceled. We have a few updates to share from Mecklenburg County. They're having a small business hazardous waste event on June 26th from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at their tire and metals facility. The address is right there on the screen, and you can register by emailing mecklenburg@ecoflow.com. Then they're having a countywide career fair June 28th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Valerie C. Woodard Conference Center, and all county departments will be represented. They request that you register by contacting them, but walk-ins are welcome. Just wanted to share with everybody a reminder that there is a new traffic signal that activated last week. It's at Arrowhova Drive in US 21. Just please use caution and be observant when driving through this area since there's a new signal in place. Maxwell Avenue right here near Town Hall, there are lane closures going on beginning today that will go on until work is completed as contractors are working to install water taps for the new Town Hall project. And just wanted to share with everybody, the next mayor's coffee mixer, we will not have one this month, but it will be next month on July 24th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Kunu Coffee, and that's at 8519 Gilead Road. Also, speaking of the mayor, she has passed along a proclamation for me to read into the record tonight. She signed a proclamation for Pride Month and could not be here. She's at a University of Oregon graduation and has requested that I put this in the announcements. Proclamation from the mayor says, whereas all are welcome in the town of Huntersville to live and work, and every resident deserves a place to call home where they are safe and accepted. And whereas the town of Huntersville strives to ensure our town is a place where all people, regardless of race, religion, national origin, gender, disability, or age, are treated with dignity and respect. And whereas LGBTQ people in the United States face disparities and discrimination in employment, healthcare, education, and housing. And whereas June 2024 marks the 55th annual celebration of Pride Month throughout the United States. And whereas the town of Huntersville promotes inclusivity and equity, safety, dignity, and a welcoming environment for our residents and visitors. And whereas the town of Huntersville is enhanced and strengthened by the cultural, civic, and economic contributions of the LGBTQ community, and we embrace this incredible, rich diversity of our population and town staff. Now, therefore, I, Christy Clark, Mayor of Huntersville, do hereby proclaim June 2024 as Pride Month in Huntersville, North Carolina. After that, we just wanted to pass along some fireworks safety tips from the Huntersville Fire Department. A reminder that in North Carolina, fireworks that leave the ground or explode are in fact illegal. HFD recommends leaving the fireworks displays to the professionals and to attend a public display. HFD recommends soaking spent or used fireworks for several days prior to discarding them in the trash. Very often people just throw them right in the trash, they smolder, they burn, and they cause a lot of fires. Some statistics, fireworks started an estimated 19,500 fires in 2018, including 1,900 structure fires, 500 vehicle fires, and 17,100 outside fires. They cause deaths, injuries, and a lot of property damage. And a reminder, sparklers are a very popular firework, in states where we can't have ones that touch off the ground. They burn at 2,000 degrees. That's hot enough to melt metal, so please, especially children, use caution when using sparklers. And as a reminder, guys, please consider military veterans and neighborhood pets during fireworks displays and the volume of the fireworks that you purchase. And just as a reminder, as always, connect with us in many ways online. We have our website at huntersville.org. You can sign up for our newsletter, the Huntersville Hub, by visiting our website. You can follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor, or you can download our Town of Huntersville app from the App Store. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Ethan? All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, we have a couple of presentations tonight. So some of the folks who weren't able to present during the external agencies period, they will be presenting during this time, but we're going to start with the Lake Norman CDC, or the Cornelius Community Development Corporation. Hi.
Thank you so much. I'm Michelle Hoverson, the Executive Director of the Lake Norman Community Development Corporation, which started out as the Cornelius Community Development Corporation. That's what we incorporated as. But as we got into our mission and vision, we realized very quickly that we were really addressing affordable housing with a regional approach, and so we started doing business as Lake Norman CDC, and we are in the process of changing our official incorporation name to the Lake Norman Community Development Corporation. So I hope that cleared up any confusion over that. Real quick overview, we're 20 months old. Some of you I have had the privilege of meeting with about advancing affordable housing in the Lake Norman region. But over these last 20 months, we have been involved in several different things, including being part of the working group that presented the Huntersville Affordable Housing Initiatives last year to the town board. We have facilitated several collaborative discussions between developers, town staff, and nonprofits to increase the affordable housing inventory. We've assisted 41 seniors with rental assistance, launched a new rental assistance program in which we have 9 engaged participants earning between 60 and 100% AMI, which includes 2 Huntersville town employees and a third one in the pipeline right now. The average rental assistance for our participants is $318 a month, and everyone who's participating in that rental assistance program is going through a 9-month financial coaching program. If they complete that program, they're then eligible for a second year of assistance. The third program that we've launched recently, just 4 months ago, is our Critical Home Repair Fund, through which we've already assisted two home repair completions, and this is the object of our grant request. I wanted to come back and address the question that one of the commissioners asked earlier about the difference between emergency and critical home repairs. Emergency home repairs, such as was applied for by the Pottstown Group, those are urgent repairs that must be completed very quickly so that the homeowner does not have to move out of their property. It becomes a health hazard for them to be in their property, or there's such a structural issue going on that it's dangerous for them to remain in the property. So that's really emergency. Critical, I hope that maybe is a little more of an explanation. Critical does jeopardize, if it doesn't get repaired, the repair is going to jeopardize the property to the point where the property owner may have to sell their unit, and then it's purchased by someone else, and it no longer is in our affordable housing inventory in the area. So as the demand for affordable housing continues to increase, preserving existing affordable housing plays an important role in the continuum of housing affordability. Providing critical home repairs allows more of our aging population and low-income residents to remain in their homes without the fear of displacement. Repairs also reflect the growing realization that we all have that if Lake Norman is to address its affordability issues, it must do more to preserve its current stock of affordable homes, not just build new units. Providing critical home repairs also preserves multi-generational family-owned homes in some of our more historic neighborhoods. The Lake Norman Critical Home Repair Fund is accessible to nonprofit organizations that are overseeing the home repairs. It's not for individual homes to apply to. The nonprofits work with the homeowner to qualify them, and then the Lake Norman CDC provides the resources for the home repair. Sometimes we might even be a layered funding in that home repair if it's significant. So I think the question that I really want to address at this group is, you might be wondering, why would we be applying to the town for funding for a fund? Why would you not just open the gates to everybody who wants to apply for critical home repair funding? So I'm going to give you a few reasons. One is efficiency. As an organization, as a nonprofit, we have the ability to vet the nonprofits, look at what their policies are, how are they applying the funding, follow up with them, and also ensure that how this home is going to remain in the affordable housing inventory for a year to 5 years. You may not have the staff, the administrative staff, to do all of that. Another is responsiveness. Our fund is open all year long for people to apply to. It's not just a small window of time. So as long as we have the funding, these organizations can apply. And some of the organizations that are doing the critical home repairs in Huntersville are not organizations that are nonprofits located in Huntersville. They may be located in Charlotte, they may be located in Concord, but the home has met their qualifications and they want to do the work on the home. So they may not even apply for money directly from you all. Also, expediency. We are obviously, they are able to apply to us. Once we look over all their documentations and vet them, we can usually give them an answer within 3 weeks. And there are a lot of critical home repairs needing to be done, and when organizations have to wait for long grant cycles, that keeps a home, maybe keeps their funding from them realizing their funding for 3 to 6 months, and that home is on a long docket. So we can fund rather quickly and get moving on that house. In fact, when someone applies to our fund, they have to commit to do the work within 6 months. Of the funding being made available to them. And we also, part of our funding can also be applied to administrative project management costs, and a lot of municipality and government funds, particularly state funds, HUD funds, can't be used for those administrative costs. So that delays the work in the critical home repair getting done. And we provide accountability. Sometimes we'll be a layered funder, sometimes we'll be a solo funder. We have 2 levels of project funding. One is up to $1,500. That home has to remain in the affordable housing inventory for 1 year, or the funds have to be returned to us at the sale of the house. And after 1 year, that grant is forgiven. Or they can apply up to $8,000. That has more criteria to it, and those funds are payable back up to 5 years at a 20% deduction each year. And then once 5 years passes, if the home is still in the affordable housing inventory mix, that grant is forgiven. So you might wonder, how far would a $30,000 grant take us? Based on applications, and we don't know who's going to be applying and for how much, but that $1,500 to $8,000 range, that could be anywhere between 4 and 20 homes in the Huntersville area. If we get all $8,000 requests, that's less homes. If we get a mix of those small projects and large projects, then that's obviously more homes. We have a wonderful relationship with a lot of the organizations, and we look forward to working with a lot of them and making a difference in this area. So that's what I had to share. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
No questions? Oh, you have one. I know you like to ask questions.
I just, can you mention some of the nonprofits that you are planning on working with?
Well, here are the nonprofits that we've met with and we've explained the fund to. So that's Habitat for Humanity, Rebuilding Together, She Built the City, Pottstown Heritage, Caterpillar Ministries, and then also other neighborhood associations in Davidson and Cornelius. Obviously, these funds would be designated for Huntersville only, but some of those larger organizations would definitely be working on homes in the Huntersville area.
Any other questions? Commissioner Rivers?
Yes, ma'am.
And so this will be your first time actually working in the town of Huntersville, correct?
Well, no, in that we have the rental assistance program, and we've approved 2 applicants for Huntersville, who are actually town employees, and we have a 3rd person in the pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarity.
Sure.
Anything else? All right, thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.
Appreciate your time. All right, and then lastly, we have the Hugh Torrance House. You're welcome to come on up.
Michael and I are batting cleanup for all the nonprofits. I'm Bill Russell, President of the Chamber of Commerce, but in this capacity, I'm the chair of the Hugh Torrance House of Store. This is Michael Connor. He is one of our reenactors. Does the new town hall have a place where we tie up the mules? But up until a few hours ago, I thought Abigail Jennings would actually be here to make the presentation, and Abigail is sick tonight, so I'm going to be doing that. Is everybody at the dais, are you familiar with Hugh Torrance House of Store? Have you been there? Okay.
Really?
Then several.
Did you see me?
I did actually.
You did? Oh, okay. Anybody else out there? Okay.
I've been on the board of directors since 1997 and the chair since 2006. And Commissioner Walsh, in one of his earlier terms, used to hear us come up here, and when we talk about when we were asking for the funding contributions to protect one of the few historical treasures we have in Lake Norman. Most of our history in Lake Norman is underwater. So the fact that we have Hugh Torrance and Rural Hill and Latta Place is a real testament to the investment this board has made. But I would come before the boards like Nick sat on and talk about how we're open from April to September, the first and third Sunday for 3 hours. And again, the board understood the investment they were making, but it was a limited amount of time. About 4 years ago, Abigail Jennings bought Cedar Grove, and it opened up a whole opportunity that we never had before. Because up until that time, Cedar Grove, which is the brick home beside Hugh Torrance House of Store, had been in private residence. And so we really couldn't have tours unless Bell Banks or Torrance would open up their homes, which was very rare. Now we're having events every month. We're having so many activities. And Anthony just passed around the presentation. I want to draw your attention to some of the things. Prior to Abigail taking over and her creating Hearts, which is history, ecology, arts, trails, and the store. But prior to her doing that, we had 16 events and 200 visitors. Again, not a lot. The next year, under her leadership and bringing them on these events, we had 60 events and 1,600 visitors. And this past year, 74 events, 2,318 visitors, 94 field trip students. And the website that we had went from 0 before she took over to 1,562 unique visitors. Again, a tremendous amount of activity taking place over the Hugh Torrance House of Store. I remember when Lance Munger, we made the presentation 3 years ago, he said, why don't you open up the store and have a store again? And why don't you have more visitors? And we really couldn't. But now we do. We have the store that is actually selling stuff. We have all of these events. And matter of fact, we have one coming up this coming Saturday, and I wanted Michael to talk about it.
Okay, the one coming up Saturday, it's called Union. And 3 years ago, Andre Kearns came to Cedar Grove to talk about his paternal side of his family. He had traced his ancestry all the way back to Charlotte, who came from the Cedar Grove plantation house. However, in tracing that back, he found out that she no longer was there, that she actually left there. And being a genealogist, he decided to find out where did she go after she left there. And through our research as well, because we had been telling the story all along. And so what we did was we found out his story paralleled with our story. He said he came there, and we were telling the story. There were 3 girls that Isabella brought with her. And James was born at that time, so these were James's half-sisters. The littlest one She was about 7 years old. Her name was Isabella. Isabella grew up. She went to, I guess, the Salem College and all these things. But when she grew up and got married, she decided that she was going to marry a Kearns. And she wanted to take one of the enslaved people with her. So she had to get permission, because women didn't have any rights. Sorry, ladies, back that time. So she had to ask James for permission. James gave her permission to take Charlotte with her. Charlotte was one of the 33 enslaved people that when Hugh Torrance and Isabella died, they gave these enslaved people to James. James at that time owned 125 enslaved people. And so he gives Charlotte to her, and she goes off, and Charlotte's name becomes Kearns. So when Andre Kearns comes back here, he finds out that that's what happened to Charlotte. He also gave us other information because at that time, the Torrances were going to Hopewell Presbyterian Church. So you see the galley that's there in Hopewell Presbyterian Church is where the enslaved people would have to worship. Well, he found that Isabella also went to that church as well. There are tombstones of Isabella being there, but Isabella, she doesn't stay with the family so long, but Hugh Torrance, Isabella Torrance, James Torrance, they're all buried there, his wives also. But Isabella, the daughter, goes someplace else and is buried someplace else. But Andre also traces that. And he lets us know that they started a school called Miranda School for the blacks. He also started Miranda Church, which was across the street at that time from Hopewell Presbyterian Church. It is no longer there, however. But he comes back this year, and he's going to talk about the maternal side of his family, his mother's side, what happened with them, and how they fared in this area as well. So he comes back every year to give us this information. And then we tie some of this information in with what is happening with the Hugh Torrance house and store. And so our tours talk about not only Charlotte, but the people that were with Charlotte. And there's one interesting story that we need to tell. And I got to tell you guys this. Her name was Flora. There were 5 enslaved people that came with Hugh Torrance and Isabella. And that was part of her 1/3. Now, Phoebe dies, and in 1790, there are still 5 enslaved people. So what we find out is that Phil, who was a mulatto, has a baby with Banner, and her name is Flora. Well, Flora's not included with that widow's 1/3. So James's half-brothers in Mooresville, they sue him for Flora. They say, no, she wasn't part of the 1/3. They take him to court, and what happens? They win. So Flora and her increase, James has got a lot of property now. He pays to keep Flora there. But while Flora's there, she has twins later on. The brothers in Mooresville find out she's got twins. We're taking them back to court. They take him back to court again, and they win $2,000-something more. Now, there's one other thing that we have fun on the tour, because all of this is documentations and stuff. And there's some nice names in the documentations that you can make some nice stories about. I'm also a storyteller, by the way. Anyway, there's this story when Margaret Allison, James has died in 1847. So Margaret Allison has to get an overseer. So the first overseer is drunk all the time. The next overseer is not nice to the enslaved people. 1862. Margaret Allison tells her sister, I have found the best overseer ever, better than all the overseers I ever had. 1862. His name is James Brown. That's the documentation. James Brown is given a milk cow, he's given a horse, and he's given $250 to oversee the plantation. He's drafted into the Confederate Army in 1865. But the war is going to end in about 2 or 3 months after that. And so the war ends. All the enslaved people at Hugh Torrance house and store in the Cedar Grove, they actually leave that plantation. Only one comes back. His name is Sam Alexander. Lucky that Sam came back, because Richard Allison, who lost a leg in the Civil War, has come back, and now he has the house. They have a cotton mill. Richard Allison gets his arm caught in the cotton mill. Sam Alexander was the one to pull it out, else Richard would have died. That's my story for now. Come to Hugh Torrance House and Store, and we'll tell you more stories about this, and it's all documented. So when they say, where's that found? And I got you the stories by the contribution of the store. I got you the thing about the slaves in Hugh Torrance, Cedar Grove. It's all in print. Thank God for the Torrances. They left a lot of documentation that you can find at UNC Charlotte, and you can find some of it in the house itself on the 3rd floor. So I know that Richard Torrance Banks Jr. went to North Mecklenburg High School, finished in 1969. I know this because his diploma is in the house on the 3rd floor. And I found it. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Michael. We are so fortunate to be able to have the storytellers and the docents and everybody serving the house and store. And again, for those of you who've never been there, it is the oldest standing house and store in North Carolina. There are older houses, there are older stores, but this is the oldest house and store, and we have a true treasure here. The allocation is $25,000. One of the things that we want to do differently, we've now gotten to a point where we talked about earlier the need of volunteers. It is now becoming a little bit more taxing for us to be able to rely strictly on volunteers. We're going to have to bring on an executive director who can do some grants and request grants, work for other types of funding, sponsorships, things of that nature, and also organize the storyteller, the docents, and those who are working on all of these events. So if you have any specific questions, I'll try to answer them or turn them over to Michael, or certainly have Abigail send you back an email.
All right, any questions?
Thank you.
Questions? All right,
And
thank
one note of personal privilege. As president of the Chamber of Commerce, and I guess being last on the list tonight, and hearing all the nonprofits that serve our community, this community, I live here, I work here, it is really, really cool. Thank you for investing in those nonprofits.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the presentations from our external agencies. Just a quick note, we are not voting on this tonight. This was just a hearing from these groups and hearing their presentations. So moving right along to the next item on the agenda, we have a presentation, I believe, from Charlotte Water. Is that correct? Okay. You're welcome to come on up.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, town staff, for the opportunity to talk with you this evening. I am Angela Charles, Director of Charlotte Water. I am not a storyteller, and I don't have any stories about James Brown, but I am here to talk about water this evening. Also with me is Deputy Director Sean Kaufman, Chief of Operations Marion Sanders, and William Lee, and thank you all. If you want to wave your hand or say hey. Okay, and thank you all for being here this evening. I do want to give a shout out to Anthony Roberts. I've known Anthony since the 90s. We went through the Institute of Government, municipal, I think, administration certification. Okay, I'm sorry. Together, but it is a treat to see you again, Anthony. So I am going to give a briefing, pretty much a state of the utility, talk about our accomplishments, and then just give you a little bit about emerging issues and look ahead. Also, I gave the clerk our annual report. She's going to put that in your box. Yearly, we print an annual report, and it'll have additional information on Charlotte Water. Just a quick reminder, we are a regional utility. We provide a high quality product, so we do believe in drinking tap water. We have over 9,000 miles of water and wastewater mains throughout the system. We have 3 water treatment plants that provide drinking water throughout the region and throughout our county. And then we have 5 major wastewater treatment plants and 1 small package plant that provides wastewater treatment throughout our region and county. We are a AAA rated agency. We continue to be. In FY '23, we invested over $483 million in our community. That's in 1 year. We have a $2.25 billion capital improvement program, and that's what it takes to serve over 1 million people in our service area. One thing that we've most recently done, and this is the second year, we did an economic impact study. I truly believe, and we truly believe, that water is a silent economic driver in our community. You hear lots of information and narrative about airport or about transportation. You don't really hear a lot about what water contributes economically to Charlotte Mecklenburg. And so for every 1 million spent by Charlotte Water, 10 plus jobs are created in our community. And in water-dependent industries in our 6-county region, 261,000 jobs are created. The other thing that I didn't state about Charlotte Water is that we also wholesale, and we have connections to communities that are adjacent to Mecklenburg County, including we do have 2 wholesale customers in South Carolina, and that's not well known. In terms of economic output, for every 1 million spent by Charlotte Water, that is 15.2 million in economic growth in our community, and then 48.5 billion in economic growth contributed to the 6-county region by water-dependent industries. And so when you look at water, it really gives you a different context. We understand that we are in the service business, the public health business, and that was evident in COVID, but also water is always moving in the ground. I say it's beating in the ground. Can you hear it? But it's also an economic driver for our region. Accomplishments, and I hope that some of you have experienced this. We implemented a text and email alert system for service outages. Some of the comments we got from the northern part of the county, when possible, can you send us a text or email like some of the other utilities? And so we started that. A Renew Brew, that is beer made out of recycled water. We partnered with a company called Xylem and Town Brewery to create a recycled water beer. We were the first in the Carolinas, and this has really hit nationally. People are talking about Renew Brew. The plant where we produce this product is called QC Water. The plant is actually in Huntersville. It's the McDowell Creek plant, and it's where we treat water to a standard, and it can be used in beer, and it's being done today. All-time low for sanitary sewer overflows. We continue again to have no water quality violations. We are continuing our apprenticeship program. We are trying to draw people to the water and wastewater industry. I often say working in water is not sexy. So, you know, we work hard at it, and we have one of the best apprenticeship and internship programs for folks who want to work in water and wastewater. We broke ground on a Stowe Regional Resource Recovery Facility. Belmont and Mount Holly and Gaston County are also partners in this effort. And at the end of the day, we will be treating wastewater from those 2 cities, and we have 2 pipelines right now for Mount Holly, 65 feet below the creek bed, to connect Charlotte water to Mount Holly, and we're very, very proud of that because they really went in from both sides, and that's just remarkable. And then we opened up a one water facility. So what has been happening within the city of Charlotte, city stormwater was placed under Charlotte Water. And so we have everybody, when I say everybody, we have city stormwater, and then we have a portion of one of our maintenance and repair zones in our apprenticeship program, all located at a new facility that we're calling the One Water Facility. It's on West Tyvola, and it is beautiful. Looking ahead, if you ever heard of forever chemicals or PFAS, right now we are below the new limit that was determined by EPA as a standard, so we are below that now. What we're doing as a utility is saying, okay, we just don't want to rest on that. What do we need to do in terms of treatment and looking at treatment technologies, just in case there is a day where the science can detect something that we have to deal with. But right now we are in good shape, and PFAS is everywhere. It's in lipstick, chocolate cake. Babies are born with forever chemicals these days. But it's something that's been in the news, and we are in good shape there. Online lead service inventory map. This is another initiative and regulatory requirement by EPA. October this year, we have to know the pipe type of every dwelling that is served by Charlotte Water. And this is the private property side, not just our side, but the private property side. And if a homeowner has a lead service pipe, we ought to facilitate. It didn't say at our cost, but our interpretation of the regulatory information is that we have to facilitate that. So the presentation earlier about the work being done in Huntersville with affordable housing, I was just whispering to staff, we need to get her information because it's initiatives and partnerships like that that we may end up needing. Online portal and customer service options that's called Charlotte Water Hub. We are moving to, and I just want to call it the way the world is, where you can pay your bill on your phone and you can put in a service request on your phone. You know, everything's an app. And so that's an improvement that we're working on, and the latest is November of this year. Interbasin transfer plan, there's been some conversation about interbasin transfer. Not sure if you've heard anything about it, but there is a website. If you get asked about Charlotte Water's interbasin transfer plan, you can go to charlottewateribt.org. And it has everything on there, from questions from public meetings to our process that we're going through from a regulatory standpoint, but that may be helpful to you. And that's charlottewateribt.org. And again, a $2.25 billion capital improvement program. And then my last slide is here. We created a nonprofit January 12th of this year. Was our first meeting, and the whole objective is that it's very disjointed in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, where does a person go if they need help with paying their water bill, wastewater bill, or stormwater bill. Some people go to crisis, some people go to DSS. In COVID, we even had churches on the northern, there were some churches in your community who paid water bills for folks who are in need. And so we thought as a utility, we would try this and see how far we can get with it. So we have created H2O Foundation. And again, it has the mission to provide support for folks in our community, and community is broad. If you are a Charlotte Water customer and have a qualified need, we want to do one of two things. We want to either direct you to a nonprofit or agency that can help you, or we want the foundation to have enough funds itself to be able to assist folks in our community. We are what is called the transitional board. We have an attorney from Parker Poe helping us with this, because on some level it can be self-serving. And so now we're in the process of nominating folks who would take this idea to the next level. And then, we'll have to step out of it. But, the whole idea is, and we've talked to many folks, many companies, even municipalities and towns and other folks can contribute. We do have our 501c3. We went through that process. And we just want to have a place for folks in our community to go to. So that is H2O Foundation. So I will end with thank you for the partnership. Town staff and Charlotte Water staff work often together when there are construction projects. I heard something about a water tap being put in at a previous presentation. We just really appreciate the partnership. I hope you're proud of the water and wastewater utility. What I say is that if you pay a water bill, you're paying into our utility and our ability to provide such an essential service to Charlotte, Mecklenburg. We count it an honor to serve, and again, thank you for your support. I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Commissioner Bergsman?
I'm just wondering if Charlotte Water ever works with like River Keepers or other organizations that are really focused on maintaining the safety of our drinking water.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a great relationship with the Catawba River Keeper. We are also a part of two groups. I'll name both of them. One is the Catawba River Water Management Group and the Yadkin PD, because we have one plant that discharges into the Yadkin PD Water Management Group. And those groups are focused on the source, and you're correct, the source waters in quality and quantity. We also, and we're very active in those groups. We even have Dr. Gina Kimball. She's over our lab, and she works very closely with providing water quality testing. We have one of our deputies who's a treasurer. So we work in those types of groups, and definitely have a good relationship with John Searby and those folks with the Catawba River Waterkeeper Association. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to public comments. Just a reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak. When you come up, please provide your name for the record. First up, we have some folks from Movement Migration.
Hi, good evening. I'm Kim Jones. I'm a resident of Huntersville, and I created Movement Migration, Move to Live, Migrate to Survive. I was a professional dancer in New York, and now I'm bringing I started this to bring seasoned artists together. During the pandemic, I realized there was a need for senior citizens to get out of their house and to move. Many we know have passed because of loneliness and being isolated and not moving their body. Thanks to the ASC, I was able to get $50,000 to start movement classes for seniors citizens. Many are sitting in the back, and these are two of our participants that have become very important to me. It is important that we continue to support the arts, and I ask you to think about it for your next fiscal cycle. I'm going to, because of 3 minutes, I'm going to have Leslie or Pauline to please share their experience in our classes at the David B. Waymer Center.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for the time to speak. I want to say how important this class is to all of us, and we are all different levels of accomplishment with movement and dance. We have people that have never danced before, and you have people like me who was a professional dancer. And it's wonderful to go to one place where body, mind, and spirit are nurtured. And it's especially important. I'm 80 years old, and I must move. And it doesn't matter the level. This class feeds everybody.
We do have one participant who is a breast cancer survivor here in the room and comes to our class for healing. And she asked me to share that with you, that the movement classes provide her a quality of life. It also is a sense of belonging and gathering. We've built a community where we gather twice a week. I'm getting emotional because I now have like 50 new grandparents, and they have just shaped my life. And I bring in my college students. I'm a professor at UNC Charlotte, and I integrate my college students to be my assistants, to be the next group of leaders, to bring life back into our bodies, and to connect us face-to-face, eye contact, for their mental health, their spiritual health, and just to build community. Pauline, would you like to say anything?
Yes, my name is Pauline Caldwell, and I tell you, movement migration has really changed my life, and it has also changed the lives of those that come. Right now, we're just doing 2 days a week. It's like Tuesday and Fridays, and we don't want to miss that for anything. They don't only teach the exercise, they give us points about how to engage. We're learning some French also, believe it or not, and we're learning different positions. And if we just have, is my 3 minutes up? Well, anyway, I wanted Leslie just to show you a few little moves, because a few of the dance moves, because she is so elegant, and sometimes when I'm there, I watch her a lot. So just show, yeah.
Across the room?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I want to show is that the way that she taught us to do a Martha Graham triplet, which is down, down. And we just did walk, down, walk. But by the time the class finished, we saw everybody's arms moving in sync with us.
So thank you, and I hope you will consider supporting the arts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I just want to get up and dance now. Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. BJ Caldwell. Ms. BJ, it's your turn. You have 3 minutes.
You have to dance, BJ.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to come before you each time. And I've got something good to share with you on, please give those out for me. Betty Caldwell, 14521 New Haven Drive in Huntersville. On Saturday, I was the recipient of the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. So I want to read, and I may not be able to get it all read to you, but there was some question as to whether or not this was a legitimate award. And so the word fraud was given to me to my face. So I thought, well, okay, this is a teaching moment. So this is what I'm doing. The honor was established by the executive order of President George W. Bush to honor volunteers that gave thousands of hours per year to helping others. That includes areas such as mental health and wellness, job readiness and creation, mentorship and program development to help communities at risk, and our community is at risk. With grateful recognition, AmeriCorps and the Office of the President of the United States of America honors Betty B.J. Caldwell with the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for my lifetime commitment to building a stronger nation through volunteer service, given on this past Saturday, June 15th, at Charlotte's Juneteenth Festival of the Carolinas Outreach Program. In 2003, the President's Council on Service and Civic Participation founded the President's Volunteer Service Award to recognize the important role of volunteers in America's strength and national identity. The award honors individuals whose service positively impacts communities in every corner of the nation and inspires those around them to take action too. To receive this award, one must contribute more than 4,000 hours of service in their lifetime. Led by the AmeriCorps and managed in partnership with Points of Life, the program allows certifying organizations to recognize their most exceptional volunteers. A certifying organization is an organization that has been granted authority through the application and review process to give out the PVAS to volunteers. Certifying organizations verify and certify that a volunteer has met the requirements to receive the award within a 12-month period specified by the certifying organizations. And certifying organizations must be established and operate in the U.S., its territories, Puerto Rico. And at the bottom of it is a statement about the AmeriCorps. And I have a copy for the mayor. Wait a minute. With my little picture, please take a moment, and at some point you may wish to congratulate me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, Ms. BJ, I'd like to congratulate you right now. So congratulations. All right, thank you. Next, we have Robin Hahn. Reminder, you have 3 minutes to speak.
I'm Robin Hahn from Pinole Pine Circle, Huntersville, North Carolina. My home is behind the Oak Farm development off the Sanford Road. The development, the members are having a terrible time getting out onto Sanford Road. You try to leave your house every day, you're taking your life into your own hands. What we would like to see happen, we've been told we can't have a stoplight in that area, is have the speed limit reduced. On Sanford Road from the west side of the Huntersville town limit up to 115, the speed limit's 45. At the railroad tracks, it turns to 55. That makes it very hard for us to get out. Because if they say they can go 55, they're doing 60, 70. They're flying, and we've got curves on it each end before and after our development. So you really can't see that well. So we're looking for direction or help to get that speed limit dropped to 45 from the railroad track up to the Davidson Concord Road intersection, which is the new Publix. I mean, there are 3 housing developments on that stretch of road. The warehouses are there, electricities, the new Serenity Senior Citizen Center. There's a lot of traffic, people trying to get in and out, and that would be a tremendous help for us, I think, if we could just get the speed limit dropped. We just had a fatality in that section of road just like 2 weeks ago, and a lot of the parents are really scared because they've got new drivers in their families. So if y'all could give us some direction or help, anything, we'd appreciate it.
We will look into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and lastly here, we have Phil Carey. It looks like Teresa Julian and Ron Julian ceded their time to you, is that correct? Incorrect. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Carey, that means you have 9 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, fellow county board members. My name's Phil Carey. I'm going to keep this to the salient points because I just don't think I'm going to need the whole 9 minutes, and I'm sure y'all will appreciate that. But I do appreciate the opportunity to express my concerns as it comes to the issue with the HOAB, which is the Huntersville Ordinance Advisory Board. I'm going to assume at this point that everything I say is information that the board is already fully aware of. If you are not aware of something, that means there's been a communication problem, which in my opinion falls back on the chair of the HOAB board. The chair of the HOAB board is Amy Hallman. It's public information, and I want to make that into the comments. I'm going to start by, just bear with me for a second, and start with an issue that this board addressed roughly 2 months ago in regards to an anonymous post about a blackface picture. And it was very clear from what I got from this board that that was not tolerable, it was unacceptable, that it's not a part of Huntersville, and it's not going to ever be a part of Huntersville as far as this particular board is concerned. A couple of days later, give or take, an existing town board member posted that picture on social media, and I happened to pass by it and made a comment. And your HOAB board chair, Amy Hallman, chose to comment, and we did a little bit of back and forth. And at the end, to shorten this part of the topic, she told me to back off. And when you tell me to back off, we've got a problem. And when an HOAB board chair is telling me to back off, we've got a problem. And I want to make that very clear to this board. And I've handled clans like that before, and I handled that one. But there's a bigger issue, and that's what I want to get to right now is, when a HOAB board chair is telling this Huntersville taxpayer, this black man, to back off and during discussion about blackface, something's wrong, period.
Mr. Carey, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
But just if you could refrain from naming other Huntersville residents, that would be appreciated. And I understand what you're saying, that this is all public record, but if you could please just refrain from naming folks, I'd appreciate that.
From naming folks, even though it's in the public record?
Jacob may want to comment. We don't want to, call folks out that maybe slander, et cetera, but I'll let Jacob comment.
Yeah, the policy itself mentions personal attacks, so once you name the name, and it makes it more personal in that way.
All right, well, you tell me if I violate it again, but public information would seem to be public information. So HOAB board chair, anybody can look it up, but fair enough. So with that said, this board also suspended, I call it suspended, but they suspended, or you can use the word reduced, eliminated, restricted, whatever words you want to use, restricted HOAB board authorization to handle various processes, procedures, and decisions because they were violating various state laws and various policies and procedures. And so with that said, there's a clear problem, a clear issue with this board. As I move on, I looked at some of the relationships, the background within the HOAB board. And so I look at the HOAB board chair, and there's an interdependence between HOAB and the planning board, interdependence in a relationship. This is weird to not say public information, but there's a relationship between one person of the HOAB board and a person of the planning board. They share the same last name, and they live in the same residence. To me, that seems to be a conflict of interest, and that's also a concern that I have about the HOAB board. When you've got a relationship like that between two boards, we've got a problem. The other thing that I noticed as I started looking in the bylaws is that there's a specific bylaw, section 2-1B, that says 8, and I'm quoting here, 8 at-large members who shall reside in, let me start over, 8 at-large members who shall reside in or own and operate a business within the town of Huntersville corporate limits or the ETJ. In other words, for this specific board, you don't have to live here. And that's something that I'm very familiar with. I've heard that a few times over the last couple months. But given that fact, and the fact that as I look through the bylaws of some of the other advisory boards, I don't see that. So this was a specific bylaw made just for HOAB. So I'm wondering why. And so I went down to the North Carolina courthouse, did a little research, and found that one of the HOAB members does not live here. They have a physical address in Cornelius. God, this is public information. This is weird. But they don't live here, and I don't see that in any other board. So again, it's another point that gives me pause that says something's not right. And at some point, these start to add up. And so one of my last points will be the HOAB under public information is the only, as of today, is the only advisory board in this entire state that exists for this function. The only one. 2 months ago, there were 2. The other one was Cornelius, okay? And it just so happens the person serving on the HOAB board who doesn't live here lives in Cornelius. Another red flag for me, okay? So you've got one advisory board, an HOAB, that does not exist anywhere else in this state, but yet it still exists here. That's odd to me. And so as I put all of this together, the red flags just keep adding up. And I just don't get it. And it's not, I could sit here and spend the next few minutes talking about accountability. Who's accountable for all of these failures? Somebody has to be. But at the end of the day, what I have found from reading through the bylaws is that you guys have a code of ethics. All right, there's a code of ethics for you as the governing body, and there's a code of ethics for the advisory boards. And I would encourage you guys to look at that, because if everything that I have mentioned here passes muster within the code of ethics, I think you guys got a bigger problem. Because if your code of ethics allows the stuff that I have just mentioned to go on, that's a sign that you're sending out to every single other advisory board out there. And when they're out there talking and when they're out there saying things, disrespecting, losing the trust of the tax-paying citizens, you've got a problem. So my ask of this board is to come to some sort of understanding or agreement, even if it's to say, hey, we're cool with our code of ethics and everything that Phil just pointed out is perfectly fine, then say so. But this list of issues for this one board that does not exist anywhere else is just odd. And the problems that this board is having just exacerbates those issues. So I'm going to leave it at that, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. We are moving on here. Before we talk about our consent agenda, do we have any questions about it? Or I'm sorry, our agenda. Do you have any questions about the agenda? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt the proposed agenda?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the agenda for the evening.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, great. Moving right along here to the consent agenda. Do we have any questions about the consent agenda? Okay. Any proposed changes? Okay, can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay. We do not have any public hearings tonight, so we're moving along to other business. First up here, we have 10A, consider adopting a text amendment to the Code of Ordinances.
All right, so I am taking this first one. So there are certain ordinances that are transient and temporary in nature. The best example of this is the budget ordinance. This is because the budget is adopted each year, changes each fiscal year. There are multiple amendments. So this ordinance, for example, is not published in the Code of Ordinances. However, according to NC School of Government and NC GS 16877, the Code of Ordinance should specify which classes are being treated as temporary and transient. So all this ordinance does is add those classes. And shout out to Catherine Cook for noticing this in one of the classes she took with the School of Government.
Very good. Any questions? No questions. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the text amendment to update Section 10.14, the Code of Ordinances, to include classes of ordinances of transitory nature.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to 10B, consider approving budget amendment transferring $6.2 million from the general fund balance to HFFA. Jackie.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. I talked to Anthony today about providing you with visuals, and Anthony suggested that my visuals were more confusing than talking. And so if I don't inject a little humor into this, I'm afraid in 5 minutes I will lose many of you because I try to take accounting jargon out of the things that I talked to you about, and there's just no way to remove it from this. So a due to, due from, which again, humor, Anthony can't say that 3 times fast. We established that at the retreat this year. The due to, due from is one fund advancing some funds to another fund, some money to another fund, with the expectation that it'll be paid back. And so if you look at our general ledger, our financial accounting software, so the HFFA fund generated a due to the general fund. That means the general fund advanced HFFA money to the tune of a little over $5 million before FY 2006, with the expectation that that would be paid back. According to our general ledger from 2006 to 2019, not a single penny, not one payment was made. In 2019, the board discussed it at the retreat then, and I've been here since April of 2016. It's been discussed several times since then. We discussed, should we pay it back? In 2019, I cannot take you to minutes. I didn't ask Janet to look it up. I have no recollection that the board in open session adopted a payment plan, but I could display for you an email where we discussed, here's a 19-year plan to pay back that $5 million. We made one payment on that. I'm going to call it advancement. I don't even want to call it a loan, because loan suggests to me there is an interest factor, and there never has been. We made a single payment of $350,000. COVID happened, and the financials in HFFA changed dramatically and are no different, really. Okay. The whole purpose behind a due to, due from is the expectation that it be paid back. For something that you have owed for more than 18 years, when you owe 80% of it, you've owed 80% of it for more than 18 years, do you have a realistic expectation of paying that back? I'm going to tell you, I don't see a way clear to do that. And so what you have before you tonight is the request to take away that expectation of repayment by making that a permanent transfer. To the extent that you believe the financial situation at HFFA would ever change, you can do exactly what you're doing tonight and make a transfer back to the general fund. Effectively, you don't have use of these funds in the general fund because you've already advanced it to a different fund. I've been here again 8 years. No external agency has asked me about that until we were getting a Moody's rating for our LOBS, limited obligation bonds, on Town Hall this past spring. And I'm going to paraphrase and say, Moody's said, hey, what about this $5 million due to, due from you got outstanding? You ever going to do anything with that? We have discussed with you that when we adopted the FY25 budget, we expect to issue bonds again this fall. And so I ask you, you can choose to approve this budget amendment or not. You can continue to let this perpetuate the way it has since 2006 and prior. I would ask you, if you choose not to do that, help me with an explanation I might have for Moody's when we get an opinion in August of this year in pursuit of those bonds. I'm going to stop and take a breath and see if you have questions about this proposed budget amendment.
Okay, Commissioner Walsh.
So in non-accounting terms, we're writing off a bad debt.
I think that's fair. For something that you have owed for 18 years and not made a payment on, where is your expectation of a payment? I don't know. I wish there was one. I don't know how we do that.
Okay, other questions? Commissioner Dumas?
I just had to take an accounting course for work, and I just want to say that you should have taught the course. And all of a sudden, everything that you say kind of makes more sense to me now. But what happens if we don't do this?
You can perpetuate this and continue to allow our financial statements to look like we have an expectation of repayment if you want to. It's been done for almost 20 years, so you can keep hoping you can keep representing in your financial statements. We talk about budget versus actual. We talk about revenues versus expenses a lot in local government. I'm so old. I've been doing this so long. The terminology on what your financial statements are called has changed. So when we originally issued this, the idea that this is hidden or this is, I'll grant you we don't discuss it regularly, but our balance sheet, name has changed. This has gone on for so long, the name of the financial statements has changed to a statement of net position. So in our statement of net position, we've been required to issue an annual audit report every single year for decades. And so from 2001 to present, there has been a due to, due from between HFFA and the general fund. And so it looks like you have an expectation of repayment if you don't take this action tonight. And so I ask you to consider, do you have a realistic expectation of when that will be repaid?
Well, we don't have the money anyway, right? Like it's imaginary money right now.
I would say, wouldn't agree that it's imaginary. What I would say is the general fund has advanced this money to HFFA. So HFFA doesn't have this cash, and the general fund has effectively already given it to another fund to use. So analytical governmental accounting, Jackie, thinks you're overstating your fund balance by suggesting that that's funds that you have available for use, because effectively it's not available for use because you've already transferred it to, you've already allowed another fund to use it. I don't want to use the word transfer until we approve this amendment tonight.
And how would that impact us with Moody's if we chose not?
Please don't let me intimidate you into believing this could cause us for Moody's to give us a lower rating. I'm not real sure it would. I think it makes us have to get creative in how we might explain what our expectation of repayment might be.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Bergsman?
Can you just confirm that, because we're talking about old debt from, what was it, 2005,
A while
I
ago.
will honestly tell you, I didn't look at our financials today from between 2001 and 2006, but I will promise you that from FY 2006 to present, that number's been $5 million, with the exception of 2019, when we made a $350,000 loan payment on it.
So it's only being applied to that retroactive, the debt that already exists. This doesn't have any impact on whatever happens with HFFA this next coming financial year.
We have multiple funds at the town. We have the general fund, we have the transportation reserve, we have POW bill funds, we have a grant fund. We have multiple different funds. So another analogy that might work for you is we're taking money out of one pocket and putting it in another pocket. This town-wide, our financial condition does not change with any action you take tonight, because it's not like we've generated revenue from one fund. We didn't do that because there's not revenue there to be generated.
Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, one of the key components Jackie said, I mean, if our fund balance was 70 million, I'm just doing a round number, it's elevated 70 million, 6.2 of it, if we do this action, is really, it's already gone. So it's, if you take this action. So people look at our fund balance and say, it's 70 million. Really, it's not. This right here is already committed to it. So you'd ultimately be, if you do this transaction or you do this tonight, actually, it would drop down to 64 million. So just, if you want to talk about transparency, I think what we're doing and what we're saying is as transparent as you can get, so that folks realize that ultimately we are moving money from one pocket to the other to help with the operating HFFA. And it's probably going to continue to happen unless we do something different in future years. And that's something that this board will have to consider maybe at a future pre-meeting, et cetera, that we need to continue to have those discussions. If you think the facility up the road here in Cornelius is operating breaking even, it's not. They do not set it aside. Mecklenburg County, and Jackie may have said this, they do not set it aside like we do and keep track of it. It's buried in their entire budget. So we keep track of it so we know what's happening. But you cannot get more transparent than this to tell you what's going on, and it's $6.2 million over all these years that we've been subsidizing from one pocket to the other. So I think this is the right thing to do. Hopefully, if you decide to do this, we won't get this question anymore from bond counsel, et cetera, and we continue to monitor this and see what we need to do moving forward with HFFA. This has nothing to do with the folks that are managing the facility. It's our facility. It's HFFA is us. It's not the people managing it. And I think previously, I think years back, we used to take tourism dollars probably and put towards subsidizing it. I don't know what we'll do moving forward, but that's a discussion the board would have to consider. It may be we'll go back to subsidizing. This is just operationally. You already know capital-wise, the building is aging. We're going to continue to have to put money towards HVACs, $2 million some dollars just for the HVAC we spent. You're always painting the inside, putting in lockers. I mean, it's continual capital. This is only operating side that they were trying to break even on. So it's just stuff we have to consider as we move forward.
I ask you to think of it in terms of basic math. At the most recent board meeting, you adopted a budget, and you adopted it by fund, and you adopted equal revenues and expenses in the HFFA fund. Theoretically then, if their expenses come in really close to budget, but their revenues are appreciably below, they have created a deficit. That deficit is going to have to come from somewhere, and this is the culmination of many years' worth of deficits where there wasn't enough operating revenue to cover the operating expenses. And frequently, the capital has been funded out of tourism funds or out of the general fund itself. we had an overall deficit fund balance at the end of June 30, 23, our most recently audited financial statements. And so previously this year, you've already done a $300,000 budget amendment to create in the efforts of eliminating that cumulative to date deficit fund balance. But that did not correct your prior year's negative cash balance. This would do that.
I'm sorry if you already said this, but can you talk about how one year there was a $350K payment? What happened that year?
So in 2019, we had positive cash flow, and because we had positive cash flow, we used part of those proceeds to make that one loan payment. The year after, COVID happened, and so HFFA was closed for a number of months. I'm from memory, March to at least, I think, August. And so we weren't billing customers because they couldn't get in the facility. And so I'm not sure that we have had revenues cover expenses since that March of 2020.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item, Commissioner?
I have neglected to mention that for all of my 8 years being here, there has been an HFFA committee, and this has been discussed at the HFFA committee level multiple times and several times this fiscal year, with the endorsement, is that fair, of the board members on the HFFA subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
Jackie, I want to commend you for the way you explain things. You do a very good job. As it's been said, we gave this advancement of $5 million in 2006. And now here we're in 2024, and we're at $6.2 million. It is my belief that if we do not act on this, we're supposed to be good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars. So if we do not act upon this, the next year, we could be asking for $6.2 million, which the number's going to continue to go up. As Anthony said, we're paying for HVAC unit, we're paying for lockers and things of that nature. So I would hope that we do not beat a dead horse and move forward.
Any other discussion?
Well, I agree with everything Commissioner Quarles said. I just also want to add that I feel like, and I'm not on the HFFA committee, so maybe someone that is can chime in, but I do feel like we as a board need to prioritize where we want to go from here and really start to look into that and what the long-term vision, so that in another 4, 5, 10 years, we're not kind of right back where we are right now.
Anybody else? Okay. Quick note, Commissioner Quarles and I are both on that subcommittee for HFFA, so if anybody has any suggestions, you can feel free to email us, but we will be talking about this going forward, and then we will also talk about it, as Anthony mentioned, probably in a pre-meeting in the future. All right, do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget amendment transferring $6.2 million from general fund balance to HFFA.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously. All right, thank you so much, Jackie. Okay, moving on to 10C, adopt resolution, oh, just kidding. That was under consent. My bad. Okay, consider adopting second amended and restated transit governance interlocal.
I'll take this one. Emily's not here, but I'll try to be brief on this. Ultimately, the interlocal agreement was originally approved in February 1999, and then an amendment was made in November 2005, and this is the next go-around almost 20 years later to make some changes. As you know, in these interlocal agreements, things change, et cetera, modifications. What you see before you is a list of those modifications or changes that were proposed. This interlocal agreement is between Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and the other 6 Mecklenburg County towns. This is related to CATS. Charlotte Transportation Authority is basically what we're talking about. And those amendments, without going through all these, most of them are technical in nature, minor modifications. I'll just hit a few of them, but The term of the agreement goes to 2034. The process for selecting the CAT CEO is some minor changes there. Also, some expanded roles for MTC in developing the CAT's budget. And then also, they put some funds aside, discretionary funds, so that the CATs could do some outside studies if we wanted to look at how the interlocal, or if we were going to transfer it to an authority or something like that, you could use funds for that. That's just a very high-level highlight. I think Davison has already approved it, Pineville has already approved it, so it's making its round through the towns with these amendments. So it's been 19 years, some tweaks, which are very typical in these organizations. What I would say is it gives the smaller towns, I guess, a little more meat, not much, but it's some slight changes, so that's what I would say. But all of this is in your packet. You'll see the entire agreement with some red lines in there also that relates back to these actual items that you see before you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, then can I get a motion? Commissioner Walsh?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the second amended and restated transit governance interlocal agreement, which includes the City of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and the 6 Mecklenburg County towns of Cornelius, Davison, Huntersville, Matthews, Mint Hill, and Pineville.
Hey, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously. Moving on to 10D, adopt resolution authorizing upset bid process for portion of 12928 South Church Street. Thank you, everybody. Come to you tonight to present an offer we got for a portion of land the town owns at 12928 South Church Street. So kind of the first question, sort of level set, how did the town come to own this land? We acquired this property back in 2009 related to the Verhoff Bridge and the Verhoff Extension into the Commerce Station Business Park, at the time was known as the North Meck Industrial Park. Picture there is from 2011. You can kind of see kind of a small access road off to the side. That's basically the piece that we're looking at here, where they're kind of I don't know, we'll refer to it as a sliver of land that's being sought by the person who's made the offer. So this is the whole parcel. It's about 6.5 acres, and the amount requested is 0.591 acres. So just a very small portion, and ultimately being requested by an adjacent property owner, this would give them enough land to basically add a second lot. So they'd have a second buildable lot to build for a family member who I believe was mentioned as a teacher, and obviously the conversation earlier tonight related to affordable housing, it's tough for any teacher to afford anything here locally. So that would be the intent of this request. And then just to kind of show you a little more detail, this is that cut up sliver of the town's parcel, just to show you kind of how those two lots would come together. And so we outlined the process working with legal for the person who was interested in making this offer. He's had to do an appraisal at his own cost, a survey at his own cost. Offer was submitted, put on tonight's agenda. If the resolution passes tonight, it will initiate an upset bid process. That's a process that will require advertising, and then as we get any subsequent upset bids, that would generate another advertisement. And then also, once this goes through, or if it goes through, the new owner of the property would have to rezone it if he wanted to build a house. So I want to make sure that was clear. It's currently zoned corporate business. Then would also be responsible for any fees related to building permits, water, sewer, tap fees. None of that would come from the town. And then also just wanted to sort of outline what the upset bid process is. And obviously I'll defer to legal for legal questions about the process, but we've received the offer. The upset bid procedure with the 5% deposit earnest money would be initiated. The advertisement would be placed. There's kind of notes in there about qualifying upset bids 10 days after the date of publication, and we'll just kind of keep doing that. We've had instances in the past where we've had to keep advertising, I don't know how attractive this piece will be compared to some of the others we've had in the past, but if that is the case, it'll keep getting advertised, so it's all out there and all public. And then after all additional qualifying bids have been received, the board has the right to award it to the highest responsible bidder or reject all bids. And I'll take any questions. Sorry, that was fast. It's all good. Thanks, Bobby. Commissioner Dumas?
I have a few questions about this, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about the process of how this came to be, because I got some questions about, we haven't heard about this piece of land. Were we trying to sell it? Like, how did this all happen? What's the normal process for real estate dealings like this?
The town, if it wanted to market it and then try to sell it, we could. Definitely was not the case here. We get random letters or calls. If you look in Polaris, which is where that picture came from, if you look in Polaris, you can look for land that the town of Huntersville owns. So we'll get cold calls, we'll get emails for easements, all kinds of things. Does the town want to sell this? Can I buy this? A lot of times it's an easement for a road project that we still need for some reason. But any number of offers or requests will come to the town, and a lot of times it's out-of-town folks, and we're not there. We don't know what we're doing with the parcels yet. And so this particular piece of land, I don't think we would have gotten the offer, but for the person making the offer having an adjacent piece of land. And so, with his intent there to basically give him a second lot to support his family and make something for, as was requested, his daughter is a teacher, I don't think we would have gotten this offer. So I think that's where that came from, and it was, reaching out to the town, and we've talked on and off for, I don't know, upwards of 18 months, maybe 2 years. There's a long list of things that person was responsible for and out-of-pocket costs just to even get to the point of making an offer. We thought that would scare him away. So, but I think it just shows you how tough this market is, and that folks are really looking for any opportunity they can to try to make a home in Huntersville.
So this specific vote is to decide to go to bid?
The upset bid process.
Upset bid process. And if we change our mind, so we vote yes and we move forward if we choose to on an upset bid process, we can change our mind and decide to turn down bids?
Correct, yes. You could reject all the bids at the next time it comes to the board.
Can we also, we've been told what this land is expected to be used for. What if that doesn't turn out to be accurate? Do we have opportunity to require him to build a house for his teacher child?
So we can have certain terms in the agreement, because the terms have to be set, but the terms have to be set beforehand because everyone needs to be on the same playing field. The issue of trying to require him to have to build a home, have to build a residence, is that currently it is zoned corporate business. So it's not even, you couldn't even build a house on there right now. So for him to be able to build, or anyone to build a house, they would have to rezone it. So if we tried to add a restriction that said this land can only be used for a residence, and then some person tried to come and rezone it, and for whatever reason that rezoning was denied, that means the land is now worthless. So because it's corporate business and he can't build a residence because of the deed restriction. So because the land would be worthless at that point, there is certain cases out there that says deed restrictions. That's one thing the deed restrictions cannot do, is make a land worthless. So that is an issue there, and possible other issues with similar deed restrictions going in that vein.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, could we, let's say it goes through the process and they get to a point where they ask for the rezoning, could we, the board, ask as part of if we get that far, of the rezoning process, ask them to deed restricted as part of the rezoning process? Just a question. I know it's a curveball I just threw out, but is that a possibility?
I doubt in this case that it would be a conditional rezoning where you could kind of do that back and forth and make them agree to things. I think it would be just a general rezoning. So, I suppose you could ask them to do that, but that's about it. They wouldn't have really any obligations.
Okay.
It'd be worth asking now.
The The other question that I had was, I know we've been talking about doing an inventory of town-owned land for potential use of affordable housing. Would this land potentially work for any of those opportunities?
I would say maybe. You know, I think if we do that and we're looking at some options to kind of get an idea of cost and logistics of having that type of analysis, I think we would ask someone to look at all of our parcels, and I think they would come back and tell you it's own corporate business. You know, there's some challenges, it's not immediately buildable. And then I think you just kind of look at the location, you know, sort of in the shadow of the tower over here with Southwire and where it is. You know, I think it's up to the board to decide if that's the type of place you want to put housing, or if you feel that's a more appropriate use for something else. I don't know, but that's a bit of a broader discussion than just we've got land, can we put housing on it? I would say for you guys. Other questions or discussion? Commissioner Bergsman?
So, just because this is kind of an unusual ask that feels a little bit of a new precedent, if I got the impression that maybe the applicant is in the room, or the person who's interested, I don't know if they would be interested in sharing. I would be curious, I don't know about the rest of the board, just hearing from, you know, the person what, you know, how you came up with this idea, first of all, because it's unique, but your reasons.
I think, yeah, probably not. Yeah,
That was my second part. That was the second part.
sorry.
Okay, any other?
But I mean, Bobby has had discussions with him, so I mean, I think Bobby kind of explained what his point was earlier, but.
Of doing this in another instance for another family member of buying a piece of property and fixing it up and you know, trying to do that type of thing. So again, if he didn't own the adjacent parcel, he's not interested in this. So I think that's where this is coming from. Oops. Were you saying something, Bobby? No, just Okay. I think and to the question earlier too about just, you know, inventory for housing, you know, sort of in the spirit of the previous mayor's task force, workforce housing, teachers, police, fire, all those types of things. That's our understanding of the intent for this, the use of this parcel. And basically, you know, you just needed enough to be able to create a driveway, create that buildable lot. And this is the intent is to serve a family member who's a teacher. Any other questions or discussion? Yeah, Commissioner Rivers.
Can you go to the slide that shows the parcels? Yes. Okay, so which one is the parcel in question that we're seeking? Is it the gray?
It's the gray-green.
Okay.
Yep, so it's a larger parcel, but this is just sort of that sliver. So this is the whole parcel, and then I didn't know how good my drawing or my polygon was there, so this is the actual shape from the survey that he had proposed, and then basically he would propose with these two to subdivide these two lots to change the lot lines, so we'd have the two lots that would be buildable, the one that exists currently, and then the new sliver, the new lot would be buildable with that additional line modification.
Okay, and can you go to the slide with the process?
Yes.
Thank you.
With that one or that one, sorry.
This one, so when you're talking about publishing advertisement for upset bids, and you said you keep publishing, what is the process with that, like the time frame, I guess, for clarity purposes?
So if there is an upset bid, then we would republish and it would just be another 10 days. So it's until there is not an upset bid after 10 days.
Okay.
And I'll try, I'm gonna throw this out there. I'm not, haven't thought about this too much, but I guess one possible option that the board could consider is if the town wanted to rezone that small area before he even bought it. Now, that would obviously mean that this would be put on hold for a second. But if the town rezoned this small portion first to residential, then at that point, it takes away my concern about it being corporate business. So it might just be an option to consider, and you might approve it now, and then, it might be something worth talking to Emily, kind of throwing this out there on the fly, but just as an option, because I see the board wanting to possibly add that restriction. And
We did speak with that with Ms. Loop, and her preference would be to do the sale and then rezone, as opposed to, legally, you can do either one, is a preference, so. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, then. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number R 2024-18, authorizing the advertisement for upset bids to purchase a portion of 12928 South Church Street, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28078, with the amendment that Section 9 of the resolution is hereby amended to say, if no qualifying upset bid is received after the initial public notice, the board may accept the offer set forth above.
Thank you, Commissioner Bergsman. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Jewis. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? No. Carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item, consider approving purchase agreement to acquire approximately 0.35 acres, which is also known as Cashins.
Any questions? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So obviously, we know what property we're talking about. Right here on the corner, Cashin's grocery store is what we're looking at, the gas station. I say grocery store, gas station. I'll probably I know there's a lot of questions here, so I may just answer them as I go along, and if you have some questions after the fact, because I know there's been some questions on transparency and the process, et cetera. Just remember, this is starting that process. Nick probably wouldn't want me to buy his house, right here in front of everybody and tell everybody, he and I negotiating what it may be. I'm picking on Nick. So you don't do real estate transactions right here at the dais. That's just fairly common sense. This starts a process. If the board decides to move this forward, obviously we have some due diligence to do. So we'll go through our due diligence. Typically that's phase 1, phase 2s. May do some surveying, may do some drilling, all sorts of things like that, just to do our due diligence. Just like if I was to buy Nick's house, I probably want to do some due diligence, see if the fence is over someone else's property line, those kind of things. So if we go through that process and do the due diligence and comes back that, everything seems to be okay, I'm sure somebody's probably, pulled the gas, thing out of the car and spilled some gas on the ground and probably over the years dumped some oil on the ground. That's to be expected, those kind of things. But if we went out there and, found 10 or 15 dead bodies buried out there, that probably wouldn't be a good thing. We probably would not move forward with that transaction, and thus we'd end this. But through that due diligence, let's say we get back and everything seems okay. Obviously, we haven't put any money in here. I don't have any way to pay for it. So we'd have to come back to the board for a budget amendment to be able to pay for it. Board has to approve that budget amendment. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say the first meeting in August, maybe when we come back for a budget amendment as we're working through our due diligence, maybe a little bit later. We may need an extension, so I don't know the exact date when that would come forward, but assuming everything was to work out, then it would be sometime most likely in August that we'd come back for that budget amendment and ask for the board to vote on that. So, that's another step in the process. We all know it's a gas station. We all know it has underground tanks. Right now, obviously they get inspected on a monthly basis. If the board were to move forward with that, this transaction and we were to close on it, we would be removing those tanks. We'd go through that process, remove the tanks. We'd tear down the building, similar to behind us where we're building Town Hall. There was a white building back there. We have to go through those inspections, et cetera, tear down the building. Someone had asked me, would we potentially have to close down any portion of the road? Maybe, as we, if we get out there and have to dig up the concrete and things like that, the concrete's fairly close to the edge of the road. We'd be working with DOT. I'm sure there would probably be some portion of that. There may be some, lane closures, et cetera. If we get to that stage, I'm getting way ahead, but We'd work with DOT, may try to do that at night or whatever that has a minimal impact. I'm sure there's been questions of, a question came up, wasn't North State, I was gonna say South State. North State, the, right behind DPK, where the apartments are, et cetera. When they're supposed to put in a turn lane, actually, and Brian may help me, I'm gonna summarize, but ultimately I'm gonna say there was a condition, and actually on the paper I hear, maybe it was note 15 or condition 15. So a TIA was done, and anything, pretty much any development with any type of magnitude anywhere in this vicinity is going to require improvements at this intersection. The intersection is failing, is what I'll use as failing. So anything of magnitude, if the town hall were to move over here, so the town hall we're building, the TIA requires us to look at a right turn lane. If we move the town hall over here on the other green strip, when we were talking about that one time, most likely same thing. We didn't get that far. TIA would have required some improvements at the intersection. It's failing. So anything with any magnitude is going to require some improvements there. So to get back at North State, because people ask us, oh, well, they were supposed to buy cash and to put in a turn lane. Actually, what they did is, as part of the, before they get their CO, they're supposed to, I'm going to try to read this right, $99,322.40 is what they had to put into an escrow account for a right turn lane. Brian, I have to correct me if I know I minimized that, but there is that went with the plan approval. And think about it. There's no way North State could go over there and force Cashins to sell it to them. Cashins was to say, I want $1 billion, or whatever the number is, that a private person can't force you to sell them their land. We as a town cannot, and Jacob, if anyone was here, whoever, can say, we cannot condemn on behalf of private development. Think about it. If that is not a public purpose. So for us to condemn for private development is not a public purpose. But if we, the town, wanted to condemn for a road project, I'm just throwing out some things there, what I'd say public use. If we were to condemn for a road project or parkland or something like that, I'm just throwing out some ideas, then ultimately, yes, we could, do a condemnation. This is not a condemnation process. This is where we're actually looking at a purchase. You heard me say that town hall behind us, the TIA does require a right turn lane. I'm gonna mix some other things in this whole, because I know these type things will come up. The Gilead Road project, Gilead Road project is a project that's on the DOT list that's is looked to be widened, where the 21 project stops basically at the post office and bring it on through this intersection, we'll say roughly on past town hall here, roughly to the railroad tracks. Well, that widening and the 13 to 15 iterations we looked at, I can't remember, we actually spent town money to look at other options. That widening would blow out a couple buildings or either take off pieces of buildings, possibly some homes, if you do the roundabout up near where the Hallman House is. So it would take out some structures there too. So we have been analyzing that as staff level. Like I say, we paid for, tried to look at other options. There is no good options. We're going to probably come back to the board in coming months to say, board, do we really want DOT to move forward with the Gilead Road project and tear down possibly 760, take out a Cashins, maybe take out a couple of houses, maybe even possibly a portion of DPK, maybe even this building. So there, obviously, staff is not in support of that. I know Brian would probably, would carry the flag for us. Staff, I would say planning staff does not even want turning lanes. However, those are required per the TIA. So what I would tell you is we will probably be coming back sometime in the near future. We have to make some decisions on those road projects that have impacts on quite a few properties. But we can't waive that requirement for us yet until we sort of think about some of the, it'd be hard for me to waive my own turn lane. When I say my own, the town's turn lane, that probably wouldn't look too good. So we've got to think through those projects as we're moving forward. The other thing I would say about Cashin is one thing we're looking at too, if we were to move forward that, we need a good greenway crossing too. We would probably look at some type of multi-purpose 10, 12-foot wide path, come up side 115 and cross at the light because it's a signalized intersection. Seems to make sense. So those are things we would look at if we were to purchase this property. And then, do we have any thoughts or ideas for the property right now? I know I'm rambling, I'm just gonna get it all out. We haven't decided, is it a, one-story building, is it a grass strip, is it a restaurant? I don't know yet. That would be something that this board and future boards would have to make that decision. What I do, think would happen is that if we move forward with it, we would probably do some type of RFP-type process, just like what we would probably do on the grass strip, just like we sort of did on 760. That's how 760 is there. We actually that was an upset bid process like we talked about earlier, and then proposals kind of came in with ideas. We actually rejected the highest bid and went because it wasn't the right use that we wanted, and ended up doing a deal with 760. I know I've rambled a lot here, but I kind of want, this is, just want to be, we talk about transparency, we talk about process, et cetera. This is a process this has to go through, and there are many, many steps to continue to move this forward. The board may get to a point and say, we don't want to move forward with this, and if so be it, but there's a lot of things in play on this corner. Lots of things in play. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions in what I would say the next 3 months on major road widenings, whether to do them or not, which will tear down quite a few buildings if we move forward with it. So I'll stop there. You may have some other questions, but I tried to hit or anticipate questions that you may ask.
All right, he hit a lot of bases, but do we still have some questions? Yeah, Commissioner Dumas, go ahead.
I just want to make sure it's clear that this is step one of the process. I had a lot of questions this weekend about, when it says consider, you guys are voting on something before you've talked about it, right? So we haven't had the opportunity to talk about this publicly yet. This is our public comment opportunity, our time to talk about it right now. And just because if we vote on this now doesn't mean we're committed to purchasing and moving forward all the way through this process. We can change our minds at any point. This is just, yes, let's look into it right now.
That is correct. I mean, I have to do some due diligence to talk about some of those things that, that I talked about earlier. So we need to do due diligence and, try to make sure they're not, and I'm being facetious, but 15 dead bodies, buried over there. So those are the kind of things that, we'll come back with information and let you know if we found anything. And then ultimately, you'll make a decision where we continue to move forward. Plus, with all those other items that are out there that I mentioned, road projects, turn lanes, that are out there on future development, et cetera, that we need to sort of analyze and think about all that as we move forward.
I think this is a really exciting step. I know a lot of us were really excited about the opportunity of bringing business to downtown, and this is kind of like step one to that. So I'm really excited about this first step. But question, I do have one. You answered most, but how would we pay for this?
It's a great question. I'm afraid if I answer that, Jackie may beat me to it, but Jackie will help me out, I'm sure. But multiple ways we could pay for it, but we did receive $3.2 million from the state. $200,000 of that was sort of allocated for the fire department. We've already spent that money, obviously, as we've continue to transition the fire department. And then there was $3 million for capital and equipment. I know Jack was going to have to help me. We have spent, and I'm just go with me on round numbers. We spent roughly $500,000. I think there was a budget amendment back, I'm going to say a couple months ago. Jackie, I know the exact date probably, that came before the board. We spent roughly $500,000 on the northern and southern roundabout to do improvements in those roundabouts, everything from town signage walls to landscaping, all of the above for those two roundabouts. And I don't remember the exact date, don't hold me to the exact date, but there was a budget amendment that came before this board to use part of the money. Excuse me. There's $2.5 million left. So we could, if we so choose, we have not done that yet. If the board so chooses, we could potentially use those funds for that purchase, if you choose to do that. You don't have to. Obviously, we can just pull it right out of fund balance. There's multiple different ways you could fund it, but that is an option. Jackie, anything to add to that? Yeah, you'll be more eloquent than me.
No, I am compelled with Commissioner Dumas. This is step one. You cannot, you didn't provide for this in the FY25 budget. And so until you allocate a funding source, a balanced budget, so to allocate to pay for the land and what your funding source is, we couldn't move forward. This is a step. You're agreeing to look into the due diligence to do it. But you do your due diligence, you decide you don't want it, you back out. Until you provide the funds in the budget to do it, I'm not convinced that you're going to press forward with it. So this is one of many steps that will need to occur. And that budget amendment will be providing a funding source. So we'll discuss it and do a budget amendment for whatever source you tell us is your preferred source.
Other questions or discussion? Commissioner Quarles?
There was some chatter saying that, had you heard a board member discuss this purchase, is it ethical for a board member to discuss real estate or legal prior to it happening? Just for clarity.
Yes. To discuss it at what point? You mean just like with somebody? I'm sorry.
Let's say before we got to the consideration.
Yes, sorry. Was mixing up my own words.
Any other questions or discussion? Commissioner Quarles, were you done? I'm done. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm cautiously excited about this, but I've got two questions, and one is there is an aspect I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, and that's with the costs associated with, I'm losing my words tonight, too. It's contagious. Yeah, removing the tanks and any remediation of the soil or groundwater in that area, because it doesn't appear that will be on the town's responsibility. And also, was there any chance that we'll have an idea of how much that might cost during the due diligence period?
So we'll get some estimates. So yes, that is our responsibility as part of, if we move forward with this. And ultimately, we will look to seek some gas stations that have the same situation, that have removed tanks. So we'll get some estimates on that during the due diligence process. But that is all on the town. Now, what I would say is that environmental agencies like to clean up situations like this, so we would be seeking, I see Bobby in the back room, we put his pencil to work and we call the right people and obviously be seeking funds for that also is what we'll be looking at. But yes, as part of due diligence, we will get you some estimates on that. Obviously, I don't know exactly what everything's buried under the ground and this and that and the other, but those are things that we'd be seeking outside agency funds on also.
So there is the possibility that the town could receive like a grant or other kind of outside funding to help pay for that component?
There is, and we'll be, as part of due diligence, we'll be sort of tracking some of that down to see what options are available out there for that.
And then the only other question I had was actually in regards to the TIA conversation with North State. So say, this moves forward and it's purchased, and we also, this is all hypothetical, but then we also decide against the widening of the road that there's not going to be a right turn lane. Do we forfeit that escrow money, or what happens to that $99,000?
I'm sure we haven't had that discussion yet because the turn lane has been, one, we have to decide whether we're going to move forward with a turn lane. And that stuff we'd have to sit down with Emily and Jacob on to figure out, if this is what we want and we don't want any more improvements here to widen out, to take out buildings all. That's a policy decision we'll have to come back to the board on. Let's just say you do move forward with that, then I would imagine that the 99,000, because we're not using it for the purposes put there for, we would not accept that 99,000. I'm just rounding. Jacob may say otherwise, or Brian, but if the purpose for it is for a turning lane, and we do not move forward with a turning lane, I would assume those funds could not just be used unless they decided to say, yes, you could use it for something else.
That's my first thought as well. I haven't looked into it, but Anthony's, that would be my assumption as well.
So some tough decisions, whether this or not, if you don't purchase it, we've got, we still got to make some decision on future turning lanes, future Gilead Road, there are many different things. Greenway crossing, lots of different items that have potential impacts on this corner.
Any other questions or discussion? I'll just say for myself, I support moving forward with this. We're not purchasing anything tonight, but this is moving forward with the process, and it helps us change the face of our downtown, which I think some people are hungry for, and so I'm excited to see what comes next. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the purchase agreement to acquire approximately .350 acres located at 14703 North Old Statesville Road, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28078, known as Cashins.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? No, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next item. We are considering appointments to the Board of Adjustment. Brian?
I'm going to give all the credit to Catherine. She put all this wonderful information together for you folks. So we just look to fill some open seats and reappointments for the Board of Adjustment at this time.
Great, thank you. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about anything? Are we ready? Okay, so looking first for Town Seat 1. Let's start down here. Commissioner Rivers, Town Seat 1.
Town seat 1, Peter Jacobson,
Okay,
right? Am I correct? I'm sorry. Oh, town seat, I'm sorry, Jonathan Bradshaw's town seat 1. I had them confused on my paperwork, sorry.
no worries. Commissioner Walsh?
That'd be Jonathan Bradford for Town Seat 1. Bradshaw, what'd I say? Bradford.
We're all confused on this. Just disregard.
It's 8 o'clock.
No worries.
Jonathan Bradshaw.
Okay, Commissioner Quarles?
Jonathan Bradshaw.
Okay, and Commissioner Bergsman?
Jonathan Bradshaw.
Okay. Do we do a motion now? Or okay. So first, do I have a motion to appoint Jonathan Bradshaw to Town Seat 1?
I would like to make a motion that we appoint Jonathan Bradshaw to seat 1 of the Board of Adjustments.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Bradshaw. Moving on to Town Seat 2. Let's start at this end this time. Commissioner Bergsman.
Peter Jacobson.
Okay.
Peter Jacobson.
I will also say Peter Jacobson. Okay.
Peter Jacobson.
Okay. Commissioner Walsh.
Peter Jacobson.
Okay. And Commissioner Rivers.
Peter Jacobson, who I confused with seat 1. Peter Jacobson.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion that we accept or appoint Peter Jacobson to seat 2 for the Board of Adjustments.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, great. That passes unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Jacobson. Moving on to Town Seat 4. Let's start again at this end with Commissioner Rivers.
Seat 4, we have Christopher Price.
Okay.
Christopher Price.
Christopher Price.
Christopher Bryce.
Christopher Price.
Okay, and I will also nominate Christopher Price. Do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion for Christopher Price for seat 4 of Board of Adjustments.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Congratulations to you, Mr. Price. All right, and then the last seat, this is for someone to be in the ETJ, but none of our applicants are in the ETJ? Is that correct?
We'll continue to search and do our best to try to recruit somebody. So if you know anybody who lives in the ETJ and they're interested, please have them send their application in.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So now so it just stays vacant. Okay. So that concludes the Board of Adjustment nominations. All right, and now we're moving on to 10G, consider appointments to the Planning Board. And so first, I just want to say, Mr. Frank Gammon, who's sitting here, has served 2 terms, and so his terms are finished. But so thank you so much for your service, and everybody here really appreciates you. So thank you for that. Thank you. All right. So this time I'm going to ask for all 3 of your applicants. So we will start with Commissioner Bergsman.
And I have a question first.
Sure thing.
Just some clarity on, because there is an applicant on the list that's in the ETJ, and I just wanted to make sure, because there's also, well, there's more than one. Are we able to have 2 planning board members that live in the ETJ on the planning board?
Yes, the statute specifically says that there must be at least 1 resident, so it is fine to have more than 1.
Okay, perfect. So all 3 names?
Yes, and also I just wanted to point out that we had 29 applicants. There's so many really wonderful applicants, and so just understand that your competition was a little stiff. But so thank you to everyone for applying, and if you are not appointed this time, don't give up. You can apply for another seat at some other time in the future. Okay, all 3, but so I have to take notes on this, so just don't go too fast. Okay.
And this was hard because there were a lot of qualified applicants. So Jay Henson, Scott Hensley, Michael Pollard. And I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Quarles.
I have Jay Henson, Scott Hensley, Michael Pollard.
Okay, thank you. And I will also be nominating those same folks, Scott Hensley, Jay Henson, and Michael Pollard. Commissioner Dumas.
Scott Hensley, Jay Henson, and April Dunn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Walsh.
Jay Henson, Scott Hensley, and Michael Pollard.
Okay, and Commissioner Rivers.
Scott Hensley, Jay Henson, and Michael Pollard.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion that we appoint Jay Henson, Scott Hensley, and Michael Pollard to the Planning Board.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so here we are with closing comments. Let's start at the other end with Commissioner Rivers.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for checking in on me. Last meeting, I was under the weather. But last month, the town of Huntersville, as well as the Northern Region, Cornelius and Davidson, participated in the Affordable Housing Awareness Month in conjunction with Habitat for Humanities. And I want to commend our town staff as well as our town board. Thank you all so much for your participation, for showing up, for being present, and for showing our town that you care about the residents. And Habitat for Humanity sends their gratitude and their sincere thanks to each and every one of you that took part in all of the activities last month. Also, I wanted to say this. On this Wednesday, our town offices are closed due to a federal holiday, the Juneteenth holiday, as a matter of fact. And just recently, Juneteenth became a federal holiday. And what people fail to realize is the importance of Juneteenth, because Juneteenth was really the actual date of true freedom for everyone. When the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln, it wasn't until 2.5 years later that all enslaved African Americans became free. What I will say for this town, in the town of Huntersville, which is the town I love and I grew up in, I want us to remember this from Dr. Peter Marshall. May we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right. So let us continue to serve together and remember that freedom is a natural born right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivers. Commissioner Walsh, closing comments?
Nothing for me.
Okay, Commissioner Dumas?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate the proclamation from our Mayor Clark, who was not able to be here this morning, or this morning. It was a while ago, but it wasn't this morning. A couple hours ago, when Ethan read her proclamation, I just want to say Happy Pride Month to everybody out there. Please, if you'd like us to consider an application to put on a Pride celebration, there's still time, so please come to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Quarles?
Yes, I didn't know if I was going to discuss transparency or why do we agree so much up here, but I guess since Town Manager Roberts mentioned transparency so much tonight, I'm just going to touch on transparency a bit. We hear a lot about that this board ran on transparency. We hear that this board isn't being transparent, or from this group of commissioners up here, we question when we have our talks, what is being transparent, or what does a small group want? Transparency isn't having a friend on the board and leaking legal or real estate information to our peers. That's not transparency. We are a very transparent board. We're also very ethical. Being transparent is when we see something or learn of misleading information, especially when that information may hinder or our public safety, our road improvements, or economic development. It is our job to go to our amazing staff to seek truth, to seek clarity, and then professionally address those issues from the dais versus an individual post, email, or phone call. When we say something is misleading rhetoric, we are being transparent. But when we do that, we hear that that's not what I want to hear. Let me put it like this. If someone posts an accusation, and if a board member reaches out to that same person via phone call to discuss that accusation, would you call it transparent if that board member says from the dais that he or she reached out to that person and he or she refused to talk to that board member? Is that being transparent? Let's collaborate and all work together. Stop hiding behind the keyboard because we know who you are. Or should we really be transparent? Come to our board meetings. Use your 3 minutes. Address your concerns and your questions to us. You're part of 65,000, but being divided only separates us versus making us one. We're all one Huntersville.
Thank you. Commissioner Bergsman, any closing comments?
So first, I wanted to wish everyone a happy Juneteenth. I will be out of town this weekend, unfortunately, so I am going to miss the event at the Waymer Center, but I wanted to make sure the information was out there, and I encourage everyone to attend the Juneteenth celebration that will be happening on Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. I also want to wish Huntersville a happy Pride Month. And I want to send a special message of thanks to Crafty Beer Guys for hosting a Pride celebration and fundraiser event this past Saturday, for Time Out Youth. It was great to see support for our LGBTQ plus youth here in Huntersville.
right, thank you. Since we won't be here for the 4th of July, I just want to wish everyone a very safe and happy 4th of July. And we'll see you back here on Tuesday in July. I forgot the date already, but it's later in July. At any rate, the 16th, yes. We look forward to seeing you then. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? No, okay, carries unanimously. Thanks, everybody, have a great night.